Meeting is called to order. Have a word from our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance are students that represent our captains from the various teams, sports teams. As you know, here in Greater Lowell, we take student leadership seriously. There are some teams that are playing away today that could not be with us in boys soccer, girls volleyball, golf, boys cross country, girls cross country, girls soccer. However, representing us as fall sports captains, football, Juan Serrano from Lowell, enrolled in carpentry. Devin Farrell from Dracut, enrolled in plumbing. Johnny Mina from Lowell, enrolled in metal fabrication. Dylan Bishop from Lowell, enrolled in masonry. Hans Rivera from Lowell, enrolled in carpentry. Representing the cheer squad, as you know, Maya Medina from Lowell, enrolled in cosmetology, and Erin Hunt from Lowell, enrolled in medical assistant. I've asked these students, the fall captains, to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Hey, Cheryl.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You know, it's going to be peaceful tonight because he's over there.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Look at that, you get to be our student representative too on top of that. It's your day today. Is that your mother in the front?
Okay, just a tidbit of information for everyone that this meeting is being recorded. So let's all be on our best behavior. And Ms. Gosselin, if we could have a roll call.
Mr. Moran?
Yeah.
Mr. Bahu?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Booton?
Here.
Mr. Tatsias?
Here.
Mr. Gigi?
Here.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. Espinola?
Okay, just for everybody's information, the chairman couldn't be here tonight, so I am the acting chair for the evening. So we hope Mr. Espinola is doing well in whatever he's doing, and I hope this meeting goes well as well. Mr. Moran, is
Does that
anybody?
require a vote?
Mr. Moran is, thank you, Mr. Booton, but not at this time.
No one signed up for public appearance, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Moran. School committee communications, are there any?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have a report of our student representative, Mila Medina. Thank you for coming, and if you could share with us what you have.
Organizations and clubs. The Outing Club is getting ready to visit the Andres Art Institute, a public sculpture park in Brooklyn, New Hampshire. Here, students will have the opportunity to hike many acres of trails while viewing art and enjoying New England scenery. Anthony Milisi, our Mass Skills USA state parliamentarian, attended the Washington Leadership Training Institute September 24th through 26th. This event is the signature training event for National Skills USA and includes extensive leadership development as well as congressional visits, tours, and networking with representatives in government, National Skills USA, and other career and technical education students. Our second annual Homecoming Under the Lights took place on Friday, September 28th. We had a great turnout at the football game where we announced Greater Lowell's homecoming royalty, Araceli Lopez and Juan Serrano. We also welcomed back the class of 2018 to pick up their yearbook and hosted a successful dance in the cafeteria after the football game. Student Council also organized a movie and t-shirt making activity in the lecture hall. Skills USA officers held a community service glow stick sale during the homecoming football game and dance. The profits from the sales will be donated to the Greater Lawrence Disaster Relief Fund. The GLTHS chapter of NTHS has a current membership of 36 seniors. In September, 61 juniors and seniors whose GPA of 3.8 or higher and had excellent attendance and conduct records here at GLTHS applied to become members. The selection committee reviewed the 61 applications and teacher feedback on these candidates and selected 51 candidates to induct into NTHS. These new members will be inducted in a formal ceremony on Thursday evening, November 8th. School committee members are cordially invited to attend this special ceremony. The National Technical Honor Society will be hosting the water stop in front of the school at the Bay State Marathon on Sunday, October 21st. They hope to have a great turnout. The runners really appreciate the enthusiasm and support of our students. On October 28th, students from Greater Lowell will be volunteering for the AMSI Foundation's Halloween Fun Run. The 5K run will take place at the Lowell Elks and begin at 10 a.m. with an award ceremony and party afterward. The freshman and sophomore classes will hold their third annual Community Spaghetti Dinner fundraising event on Wednesday, November 8th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. All proceeds will go to fund future after-school activities. That's all for clubs. Now for athletics. Both boys and girls soccer have been solid all season. To date, the girls have tripled their win total from last season. The team has also received significant contributions from their younger players, and the future looks bright for the Lady Griffins. The boys' team has once again qualified for the MIAA Division II tournament and will focus on improving their seeding with big games against league foes Northeast, Chelsea, and Lynn Tech. Cross country has run well all year and will look to finish strong at the CAC League meet here at Greater Lowell on October 27th. They will also vie for the state vocational championship on November 7th in Rentham. Girls volleyball is fighting hard for a spot in the MIAA tournament, needing 3 wins down the stretch run to qualify. The team has big league matches with NDA, Whittier, and Mystic Valley heading into the final days of their regular season. Golf has embarked on the second season in program history as a full-time varsity participant in the CAC. The team hopes to grow and compete in all their matches this fall, including the CAC Championship on October 19th. The cheer team looks primed to defend their D1 North Regional and CAC League Championships from last year. The team will first compete in an invitational meets on October 21st at Drake High School, as well as on October 27th at Billerica. Football currently sits at 5-1 heading into the final week of league play. A win on October 20th over Mystic Valley will qualify the Griffins for both the MIAA and state vocational playoffs. That's all.
Thanks, Maya.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. We appreciate you coming
you.
out to school committee meeting.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Yep, you too.
Okay, now the approval of minutes from September 20th, 2018. Motion by Mr. Moran. Second by Mr. Tatsias. Roll call.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. Espinola?
Okay. Approval of the warrants.
Move to waive the reading.
Second.
Moved to waive the reading by Mr. Moran, second by Mr. Lemay.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias? Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. Espinola?
Motion to approve the expenditures for the sum of $3,662,079.52. Motion to approve by
So
Mr.
moved.
Moran, seconded by Mr. Booton.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. Espinola?
Okay, next on the agenda is the report of our general counsel. Looks like we're going to have to go to executive session for a grievance settlement. So if we could have a motion to go into executive session? Oh, does that look beautiful? Thank you. And next will be the report of our superintendent director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, number one on our agenda is an awarding of a diploma, and I'd like to pass it over to you for reading.
Okay. Would like to say congratulations to Mr. Thomas Basnar for his outstanding achievement in earning his high school diploma. Thomas began his journey at Greater Lowell Tech in 2013. He was a member of the electronics shop. Thomas is a young man who applied extraordinary effort and perseverance in all of his studies here at Greater Lowell, ultimately leading him to passing the MCAS exam. Thomas took advantage of every opportunity for support that was offered to him. Your entire educational team is very proud of you. We wish you the best and all the luck in all of your future endeavors, Thomas. Step right up. Thomas.
Very good.
Yeah, these microphones don't seem like they're turned on.
Okay, that was great.
Should I speak louder?
Okay, number 2 on our agenda. As you know, last year during our budget process, we spent a lot of time looking at how we can increase safety, but also how to create better relationships with students around healthy lifestyles. This committee made the great effort of adding a new school resource officer full-time, and I can tell you, in the 3 short months, Officer Kozal has made an incredible impact in our school district under the management of Sergeant Manning, who you all know. I think we've had an outstanding resource in the Tingsboro Police Department, and especially the way Matt has related to students right off the bat. He's here for an introduction, maybe to say a few words, and perhaps to answer some questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mascola. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
So I'm here to introduce you to our new resource officer, Officer Koziel. I think I'll start with just telling you a little bit about his background. Matt's a graduate, 2006 graduate of Tingsboro High School. He attended University of Massachusetts Lowell and graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice February 2016. He's been to 3 police academies. There were 2 part-time academies and 1 full-time, Massachusetts full-time accreditation. That's just the police academy that, you know, the 26-week academy that all police officers attend. Prior to working for the Tingsboro Police Department, Matt was a security guard for Lowell General and, excuse me, Dunbar Armored, the Armored Security position. Also, he was with the New Boston Police Department, New Boston, New Hampshire. He worked there from May 2015 to July 2018. Recently, he was hired full-time for the Tingsboro Police Department. He hired July 18, 2018 to our present time. Excuse me. I'm a little nervous here.
You're doing fine.
Yeah, doing great. As you know, Mr. Massacola has made a safety priority of his. And what we had here at the school was, I was here 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I covered Tingsboro High School for Tuesday and Thursday. So there were times at this, during the school year that the school didn't have coverage. You know, there'd be an issue at Tingsboro High School. I was covering for other schools at the time, and we just didn't have coverage for this school 5 days a week. So what this has enabled us to do is just have that coverage. Matt's here 5 days a week. He greets the students in the morning. He's here at the end of the day. The students leave the building, see him here. He's in the lunchroom. He's just has a big presence here at the school. I mean, I'm in the office with them in the morning. Students are coming in. They're talking with them. We have an open door policy. It's just it's really a good thing for the school that we're able to have Matt here. That 5 days a week. It frees me up to do some other things in the school. But we're trying to be a little more proactive now. So like classes like in adolescent issues, some of those types of classes, I'm able to go in. We've done an alcohol class, open to do an opioid awareness class. We've done domestic violence classes. And in the past, when I've been in that situation in the classroom, sometimes I'm being pulled out of those situations. So this enables us to have a full-time police officer, available to the school, and it allows us also to get into the classrooms and do some proactive approach. And there's a lot of classes that we'd like to do that we haven't been able to do. Vape awareness, the kids with their vapes these days. There's a lot more we could be doing, and this is going to allow us to do it. So I want to thank the committee last spring for approving this position. It's going to be a great addition to the school. Any questions? Because I know we have a 8:09 first pitch, but Matt's open up for any questions the committee may have for us. What our role is here at the school.
Mr. Lemay?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to know how you like the school and what do you feel?
It's been very good so far. Being fairly new, low seniority within Tingsboro Police Department, I was on midnights. This has given me the ability to go to days, which is always a win-win. But it's definitely different interaction dealing with the kids all day. So I feel like I've even learned a lot so far. Every day is a new issue or an issue that I it's just every kid there's something going on in their lives that I've never experienced before. So I kind of learn from them, they learn from me. So all around it's a good experience. I've already met a ton of the teachers, and they're all very good to me, all in favor of me being there. So it makes me feel good every day I walk in. And so far, like I said, I'm really enjoying it and staying busy here. So that's a good thing. Makes the day go by, but so far so good.
Well, presence is always the first line on the continuum.
Right, absolutely.
If I remember my days at the Sheriff's Department, but it's great to see that you interact with the students and the staff as well. That's a big plus here. Visibility is very big. I think the students are aware of it, and I think you're doing a great job. We spoke a couple of months back. It was a pleasure to meet you, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
A question by Mr. Moore?
I was just a follow-up of Mr. LeMay, and I've interacted with Officer Koziel a few
Multiple
times.
times,
And
yeah.
Steve, I'm in the building, quite often, but looks like things are going good. And I like the parents there.
Absolutely.
Down in
Walk
front,
the
yeah.
building.
The fishbowl, as we call it.
Right there is
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, that was something that Mr.
Yeah,
Masacola
full view
is.
of the mall area too,
Yeah. So that's important because, I had an office upstairs outside of guidance, but when people enter the building now, they see, police presence. We position the cruisers now where when you pull into the, let's say the administration parking lot, the two cruisers are right there. So the first two cars that are seen are two police cruisers. So, if anyone had any, wanted to come to the school with bad intentions, the first two cruisers they see there, first two cars they see are police cruisers. So hopefully just the presence of those two cars at that position will dissuade anybody to come into the building. So we've made some positive changes in the safety at the school.
Very good.
Good.
Matt, I have a
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Matt, I have a
Thank you.
question for you.
Absolutely.
In your daily routine, are you able to sort of walk around the school and interact with the students and your interactions? How does it sort of go? Do they come up to you and they say, "Hey, Mr. Kozel, I have
So-
a..." Yeah,
So,
tell me about that.
Again, each day is different. Some days I come in and I don't leave the office because I'm just doing reports. There's other days where I get to walk around, learn my way around, still learning my way around.
You're gonna take a long time.
But surprisingly, I've had more students come to me than I would have thought. I was actually surprised. I thought that I was going to have a more difficult time with interacting, but so like I said, so far, I have the doors. If I'm in there and I'm not on, like, say, a phone call that's that needs some privacy, other than that, my door's open. I constantly having kids coming in, shaking my hand, doing the fist pumps and all that. So it's been good.
I should add that I think it's an age thing too.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, Matt's a younger looking guy. I think he's
Than
maybe
you?
a more approachable than the old Grouch. I don't know, but they seem to you know, relate more to Matt than even myself, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So
Well, I think being, with that advantage of being young, you also have to understand that you're young and they may, you know, you may be offered, so, you know, you gotta be careful. with the environment, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm sure that's part of your training too, but, you know, it's certainly part of the training here in the staff, you know what I mean?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Question by Mr. Tatsias?
No, it's not a question. I just want to state how, when I found out Matt was going to be the resource officer here, how thrilled I was. I've known Matt for a while, his family. He has the character, the personality. He'd be great for this job. He may not want to be here forever, but I think he'll do a great job, and I think he'll have a positive influence on the students here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome, Matt. You're a welcome addition. Up, Mr. Lemay, final statement?
Yeah, I just had a question. I don't know if I should pose this to the superintendent or the sergeant relative to drills, evacuations, the doors, that situation. Is that all?
Yeah, so what
Been
we
gone
recently,
over?
yeah, so in an evacuation, or let's say an active shooter situation, we are training in this. So what we've done now is, with the doors that are on the fobs, we're able to, at the flip of a switch, those fob doors can be unlocked. All the exterior doors of the school are numbered, and what we recently did was put a blue circle next to the doors that are on the fobs, so responding emergency vehicles know that those doors will be unlocked for emergency
Who
personnel
are
to
those
get in.
controlled by?
That would be, I believe it's Mark Burns,
Security.
and I'm not sure if, Joe, you have that opportunity up here, but I mean, we have access to that. We've gone back and forth over maybe putting the fob access into the cruisers and letting the cruisers respond with those fobs, but that's something we're just working on right now. But they do have access to the school.
Thank you very much.
Mr. O'Hare?
Sorry I'm a little late,
That's okay.
but I figured there was a policeman waiting on that road, so I was just gonna go slower, right? But you mentioned something earlier about having the police cruiser in its position right now, and I think that's a great idea, because I've seen so many times in Chelmsford, there must have been a vehicle that was damaged, junked, and that's out in their lawn, trying to impress or show that the students that, you know, slow down, or the same thing could happen to you. I think with the two cruisers that we have, at times, I think it has the same effect. That was a great idea.
And at dismissal now, Matt goes to the back gate, because that's a little dangerous back there, the hill, you know, on Sherman Ave. There's a hill coming, and the Lowell side, there's a curve there, so having Matt present here, he gets out there in the afternoon and directs the buses out of there, another safety issue, which I wasn't able to always get out there, and Matt's there almost every afternoon directing traffic out of the back gate. So,
And I don't think we could have been here without Mr. Mastrocola coming up with the idea with the extra school safety resource officer. So, Mr. Mastrocola, we'll turn it over to you.
Oh, okay, I just wanted a few minutes to just address Mr. LeMay's question, so everyone knows. As you know, there's multiple safety drills in place. Obviously, fire safety drills mandated by law, bus evacuation drills, which we do frequently. We're doing them now presently. We do some in the spring also. And then active shooter drills, which are upcoming but not advertised. We spend a lot of time during the summer meeting with the police force, and we did that twice this summer to review those plans and go over those plans. As you know, one of the activities that we also did this summer was to relook at our protocols in terms of entering and exiting the building, specifically in the morning. And we made some actions, as I think I've mentioned in the past. We kind of closed down the sports complex in the morning in terms of kids going in there and coming back and forth. We also had separate or in designated entrances for students, which have worked out extremely well in the building for an entrance and exit. We've also put some safety protocols in place for after school for our late buses and such. As Sergeant Manning mentioned, we did color code the buildings for better access and understanding what happens if we have that type of emergency. As you know, what just came in too, just to review with you, we have 2 new gates that have been in. Those have just gone in since we talked our last meeting. Those are active gates. We can control those. I can control those from my phone if I want to and close those anytime. So those activities are in place, and a lot of that work and good work is really done by Assistant Superintendent Principal and Jamie Costa, Associate Principal, in terms of putting those plans together. So I feel confident about that, but there's a lot more we continue to do. And as I mention this always, especially for my administrative team, safety is always the first item, bullet item, on our agendas. And even if we speak only for 10 seconds, it's still there as a reminder of the things that we need to continue to look at and be vigilant with. So I wanted to make sure I addressed that. Thank you, Mr. Manning.
Okay.
Dismissed.
Excuse me?
Dismissed.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
That's a good one.
Next on the agenda, there was a request to have introduced 2 new hired administrators. I'd like them to come up both at the same time. Catherine Palladino, who is the new ELA Social Studies Cluster Chair. Ms. Palladino joins us from an Assistant Curriculum Director in the Weymouth Schools with an enormous amount of experience in teaching and learning. And Arthur Cornelia,
I signed them up.
is the Interim Transportation and Manufacturing Cluster Chair. As you all know, Arthur's already been here with us for a while, and I gotta say, both of these individuals have tremendously hit the ground running for us and have made an incredible impact. Kate's expertise in MCAS and data analysis has helped us immensely in leading professional development in our building, and Artie's experience in the areas in transportation and manufacturing have been a big help, and we've been able to manage those departments very well. I'm real proud of these 2 individuals. I present them to you for maybe a few questions, a brief statement, and maybe a few questions from the committee.
Welcome, ladies first.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I feel as soon as I stepped in the doors here that I'm a part of the community, and that was a piece that I was missing in my previous position. I also wanted to say thank you for the flowers that you sent on behalf of my aunt. That was greatly appreciated. It was our favorite bouquet. So thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Great to see everybody. I just have to say I'm proud to have an opportunity in this position to step up into this role, and I can't thank the superintendent and the assistant superintendent enough for their support and the leadership team to help guide me through this process. Yes, I have worked here for a period of 22 years. This is the beginning of my 22nd year, and it's very nice to work with such a professional group, and I really look forward to serving the school and helping the staff and students with their success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, welcome.
Very good.
Any questions by the school committee? No?
Did he really say 22 years?
22 years, Mr. Booton. Yes, I
Thought he
did.
was 16.
Well, right back at you.
Welcome, welcome both of you, and
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
welcome to the team.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, there was a request, and I had mentioned I was going to put this as a piece of information for the committee, an update specifically around the October 1st enrollment report. I'd like to see if you'd like to look at a few slides I'd like to present to you. And before I do that, I also want to thank Ms. Martinez for her hard work in managing the enrollment of our school district. As you can imagine, these students just don't show up here and they're integrated fairly easily. It takes a lot of work on the recruitment of our students, communicating with our communities the right way, communicating with our staff members correctly, to be able to provide these opportunities. Our October 1st number is 2258. That's a decrease of 10 students from last year. That was specifically designed to be able to take less students. That was our target. We wanted to take a few less students than last year. Part of the reason is our freshman class was a little too large. And so we had a target of around 595 to 600, which we met for our ninth grade. As you can see there in the first pie chart, I know you always like to see the breakdown according to town. So you can see the breakdown: Drake at 443 students, Dunstable 8, Lowell 17, 15, and Tingsboro 92, which is a total of 2258, 10 less than last year. The second slide, so not to confuse anybody, includes the LPN students. So of course the number's a little bit higher because of the LPN students that are in district. It's about 42 students that represent the 4 districts. As you know, we have 80 students in the LPN, 78 actually in the LPN program. So it's a little bit more than half. I think it was 1 or 2 students more than last year. Also, Ms. Martinez, I asked her to go a little bit in depth so you can get a handle on actual students who applied and were accepted and were waitlisted. As you know, it's a rolling wait list, more or less. At this point, we are not taking any other students at any grade level. At this point, it's not probably wise to be able to do that. Obviously, not in the junior and senior year. We don't do that at all. There may be a couple of sophomore classes that may have a few openings, but it's getting late in terms of getting the scope and sequence of the curriculum. But we wanted to give you an idea of who came, who declined, who didn't show. Obviously, it's hard to compare these numbers year to year because it's like a moving goal line. Things change according to the student. I know this. We were active in trying to find students that would fit our school. You know this better than anyone. We have a school that's desirable and that people want to come to. We have many, many inquiries to come to our school. And just as a side note, today we had 2 school districts, the Sullivan School in Lowell, I can't remember the other school that came in today on tours. This is our active tour time. I'm very comfortable with the 2258 number. I think that's exactly where we want it to be as a target. I had said that last year. I said it was actually a little bit low. I'd like to be at about 2252, 50, but the 8 extra kids are fine for us. I appreciate the flexibility in our staff in terms of managing this. As you know, it's very hard to have a freshman lunch with 600 kids. And of course, the first couple of weeks is difficult to get kids in and out of getting lunches and that premise, but the staff works hard and they work with us in terms of managing this. I think our challenge, and I want to let you know that, is retention, especially at the junior and senior level. As you can see those numbers, we'd like to see those numbers stick with us going through all the way to senior year, especially if we've invested a lot of the scope and sequence across that level. I'm open to answer. This is a snapshot. I could always get in-depth data for you of our enrollment. I'm open to any questions. Also, Ms. Martinez is here if you'd like to ask her a question also. Hello.
Right up.
How are you today?
Real.
Great.
Now we have a question by Mr. Bruton.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for the great report. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, and I think this helps us to put down some of the rumors about hundreds of kids on our waiting list. I think it was a total of 107. So, when we go back to our communities and they tell us we're not taking enough kids or anything, we can refute that. And it is interesting to see when the kids are declining and no-show and then the total amount. since this was done? Anything new?
So just to clarify with the no-shows and the declines, I think the team that we worked with this year, there were many less no-shows this year because we were out in the community, including Mr. Fallon, our attendance officer, who went out in the community. We were able to actually get declines rather than no-shows this year. So you'll notice that there are more declines than no-shows this year. So that was very helpful. So that enabled us to take students off of the waiting list and be able to fill those seats in real time. So that was very helpful. I always like to share a little bit of good news and sort of give up-to-date type of enrollment figures. But with our new online application process, we went live last year with the online application process. And last year, about this time, we had about 22 applications and we had many applications, but they were after January, after our open house and after the tours. This year, I'm happy to report, as of just this evening, we have 161 applications. So,
Fantastic.
so that's a great sort of indication that our online process is working. We had feedback from the guidance counselor breakfast that they really truly appreciated the online prep process, that it was seamless, and we accepted some process improvement, and we're working for that as well. So, any other questions?
I do. As a follow-up to what you just said about the online application, I'd be interested to know in a year from now how we're doing as far as correct information. I know in the past, when I first started here, everything was on paper, copies, and then transposed in. Kids would have wrong contact information for their parents, wrong email addresses, wrong spellings of their names. The litany goes on and on. I'd be interested to see if you can keep an eye on that for next year, how it's cutting down on the workload of the staff here because of mistakes and lack of communication with either the child or the parent or the doctors because of that.
I think that's great insight. That is one of the process we're looking at right now, because when we have the online application process and then we actually then have the online registration process, we're able to catch many of the errors at that time. But I'll see if I can come up with some data for that as well.
I'm not faulting the parents. My handwriting's worse probably than the room, but
Right.
I think this will be helpful. Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Martinez. Those online applications, last year were 22, this year was 161, you stated. How did people find out what makes them want to fill in an application earlier than later? And, what's motivating them?
Sure, I think it's also the counselors in the middle school with the 8th grade tours. By having the counselor breakfast and being able to elicit their feedback and how we can make this partnership a smoother one for both of us, so that we can support the student who does want to come to Greater Lowell. So what we've noticed is that once the counselors were comfortable with the online process, and after they attended the breakfast, that we had a spike in the application. So they hit the ground running with the students back at the middle school and their parents.
Okay, so as more schools come and visit us, because they're visiting us pretty regularly right now, we're going to see even more of an uptick in applications.
Yes.
Based on that.
And what we noticed is there was a middle school that did come last week, and there was a spike from that school in applications.
Great. Great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Next on the agenda, we wanted to spend some time similar to what we did last year to give the committee an overview of our recent MCAS results. I'm going to set the table a little bit and then let Mr. Barton, Ms. Davis talk a little bit about the actual results. I've said this so many times to school committees, and I'll continue to say it, that the MCAS test or any state test is only one way we measure students. There are many other ways we measure students' success in our school district. MCAS is one. To use a sports analogy, a baseball analogy, how fitting, these are the ground rules we play by. This is the state test. This is what we're required to do. But I think all educators, especially educators in our school, are very aware of the fact that, again, this is only one way we measure our students. What you're going to hear tonight is a couple of different things than perhaps you've heard in the past, due to the fact that the state, again, as you know, changed the test, the criteria, and some of the benchmarks, some of the terms that we're familiar with in the past, the levels, and the way we categorized certain things within the test to dissect it and to talk about it publicly have changed. It's now called a New Generation Accountability System. This is the fourth time in my career that this has happened with MCAS. So we're very used to this happening. It's not the best thing in the world to have all these changes, and you can imagine what educators go through on a day-to-day basis with all these changes happening every 6 or 7 years or so. But again, as I mentioned earlier, it is what it is. You'll also hear tonight some of the success that we've had with last year, and there are, I'm proud to say, many successes. One of the main things you're going to hear tonight that I'm real proud of, and I want to mention the good work of Ms. Davis, Mr. Barton, Mr. Albert, Ms. Chisholm, and Ms. Palladino, is that last year we were before you, and we talked about deficiencies and things we needed to work on as a school district. There is direct correlation to what we talked about last year and the efforts that we made to improvement. And I'm so proud of the school district and our teaching staff for being able to match what we said we were going to do. We walked the talk. However, we have many other things to work on throughout the school and within the results. As I mentioned, I think our teachers are working extremely hard in terms of teaching to the scope and sequence and to the benchmarks. Proud about some of the achievement and growth that we've made, and there's some really incredible benchmarks that we made around advanced coursework in our school district, and also with students with disabilities. Ms. Davis and Mr. Barton are outstanding in terms of presenting this, and they've spent a lot of time over the past 3 weeks dissecting our data with Ms. Palladino and Ms. Chisholm to be able to put together our next plan of action to be able to fit the students. I'd like to turn over the rest of the program and our overviews to Ms. Davis and Mr. Barton.
I'm gonna.
I'll sneak over here. You want to switch?
Sure. We're just gonna do a little switch here. Thank you. Good evening, acting chairman, I should say, and committeemen. We're happy to be here this evening to share with you the 2018 accountability report and MCAS results. As the superintendent has just said, this is a new accountability system, which is more comprehensive than the previous system and designed to measure how a school is doing and what kind of support they need. This new accountability system should not be compared to the previous system, and mainly because it has some new components. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the new components to the system, or how some of the same components are measured differently. The first component is student achievement. It's 40% of the new system, and it compares student progress year to year. The second component is student growth. It's 20% of the system and compares our progress with students of similar demographics. The next component is high school completion, which is 20%, and this is made up of the graduation rate, our extended engagement rate, and our dropout rate. The next component is the English language proficiency, and it's 10%. It's how our English language learners progress towards proficiency. And the last component, which is 10%, is chronic absenteeism and advanced coursework. In addition, there is a focus on 25% of the lowest performing students, and this compromises 50% of the total calculation. and this is very important to realize, and a very big change, that 25% of the lowest performing students are 50% of the calculation in this new accountability report. I am happy to say, based on the new system, Greater Lowell's overall accountability classification is not requiring assistance or intervention. And the reason for this is that we are partially meeting our targets. 74% of the schools in the state of Massachusetts received this classification as well. Overall, this classification reflects the commitment we made last year as a school to focus on decreasing the proficiency gap for students with disabilities and moving students from needs improvement to proficient and advanced, as well as adding additional AP classes to our program of studies, and we did all of that. This is why our accountability rating is the way it is. This is something definitely to celebrate, so I would like to take the time and take a moment to thank our teachers for their hard work and thank our administrators for the hard work that they do each day. Now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Barton, who is going to talk a little bit more about the MCAS scores.
So, good evening. Thank you for having us. So it's really my job tonight to break this down. So to look at last year's results and then to sort of weave it in to explain how this new system makes sense to us all. So if you look up here, when you talk about achievement in the actual MCAS test, which comprises 40% of the overall system, achievement is defined as how students do on the test. Do they score advanced, proficient, needs improvement, or warning failing? So in English language arts are the 10 groups, and those groups comprise all students, economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, subgroups that we've talked about over the years. We improved below target, met target, or exceeded target for 9 out of those 10 groups. And if you look at math achievement, out of the 9 of 10 groups, we did the same thing. We improved below target, met target, or exceeded target within those different subgroups. And under science achievement, we rated improved below target or met target out of 6 of the 9 groups. So as we go on in each slide, I'll go into more detail of what actually that means. So if you look, ultimately what we really want in our school district is to have tall blue and tall yellow. So the thing that I think Superintendent Mastrocola and Assistant Superintendent Davis underscored is last year we went before you at this time and we made the commitment. We said we need to have more students in language arts score in the advanced category. And as you can see, we did that. The school district successfully did that and the students did that. You can see that there's an 8% jump into the advanced column in comparison to last year. That's very significant. You can see that there's a 3% drop in proficient, and then in the gray bar, you can see that there's a decrease in students that scored need improvement, and there's a slight increase in the students that scored warning or failing. So you can see that's a very significant jump in advanced students scoring advanced. So if you look at the math scores, you can see that in this area we maintained consistency. So you'll see that the yellow is similar to the previous past 2 years, the blue is similar, students scoring proficient, and gray similar, and there's a slight increase in warning and failing as far as mathematics for all students. As far as science goes, you'll see that there was a drop in students scoring advanced. However, there was a 10% increase in the number of students that scored proficient. And as far as needs improvement, you can see it maintained consistency, and warning failing, it maintained consistency. So if you remember last year, we were very concerned with students with disabilities. That was a main area of focus. We recognized that we needed to do a tremendous amount of work in that area. And as you can see, we had significant improvement, significant gains in the area of English language arts with students with disabilities. For students scoring proficient, there's a 20% increase in the students that scored proficient on the MCAS test. You can see that there's a significant reduction in the students that scored needs improvement significantly, and then there's an increase in students that failed, which is, we don't like to see that, but as you can see, there's a significant increase in the students that scored proficient and decrease in the area of needs improvement. Similarly, in math, you'll see that there's a slight decrease in advanced, a significant increase in proficient. You can see that's 16% of an increase in mathematics and students scoring proficient in disability, and there's a significant decrease in students who scored needs improvement. And there's a slight increase in students that scored warning or failing. So in that area, in that subgroup, in students with disabilities, there was a big, big jump in that area. Similarly, in science, you can see that we had a 3% increase in students that scored advanced, and there is a slight decrease in students that scored proficient and a decrease in students that scored needs improvement. And unfortunately, the number of students that scored warning failing remained the same. So this data provides us with areas that we need to focus on and continue to focus on. So as Ms. Davis explained earlier, the report card has changed. So previously, for the most part, the state was looking at MCAS data. Well, they've changed that. So not only have they changed the tests, so you have this new generation test. It's online for math and English. It's computer-based. The questions have changed. The nature of the content has somewhat changed. But also, how they score the school has significantly changed as well. So it's not just MCAS anymore, or mainly MCAS anymore. There's a lot more indicators that go into this. So it's my job to really kind of break that down for you. So one of the things the state looks at is the 4-year cohort graduation rate. So basically, over the course of 4 years, are students graduating? So as you can see, for those various subgroups, which include EL students, students with disabilities, Caucasian students, African American students, we've improved below target, met target, or exceeded target in 10 groups in our 4-year graduation rate.
Can I just add that the current graduation rate is 96.1%?
And that is starting the senior year and finishing the senior year? Is that what that is?
Correct.
Okay, it's not starting the freshman year.
No, starting freshman year, it's a cohort all the way to senior year.
The 4 years.
4 years, it's 4 years, yes.
Yeah.
What happens if there's a student that repeats freshman or sophomore? Is that calculated in there as not, as it hurts the 96.1?
Yes, it moves to a 5-year.
Yeah, great question, because that's a segue into what they call is the extended engagement rate, which is brand new. So over here, as you can see, they have a 5-year cohort of extended engagement. So for example, Mr. Booten, like you were asking, if you have a student that stays back, or you have a student that fails MCAS and doesn't receive that competency determination, they have additional time to get a diploma. That's that extended engagement rate. So for example, and this is brand new, this is the first year they've had that, or at least the way it's been calculated. So for example, if you have a student that didn't pass the MCAS test, but they came after their class graduated and they pursued the extra help classes that we do, they're counted in that group. In addition, let's say a student drops out, but we're able to re-engage them. So for example, they drop out in February, yet through the efforts of the main office and the guidance department and our faculty and administration, we persuade that student to come back. That's that extended engagement rate. So that factors into that. So that's brand new, never before seen. And it's something that Ms. Davis and I have been working with the main office and the guidance department to get a stronger handle on that and being able to track students and get an understanding of how we can help them.
Can we just
Yeah, sure,
stop
go
this
ahead.
for a moment?
Yeah.
I think some of these school committee men, like myself,
Sure.
might have some questions.
Sure.
So rather than go through the whole,
Right.
whatever, let's go ahead and open up some questions. And why don't we start with, can we try to break this down, school committee, in 2 different ways? We can do the all student section, and then we can sort of go into the special needs section.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so who may have a question in the all student section as far as MCAS?
Sure.
Mr. Lemay?
Well, I was intrigued by what the superintendent said, that he's seen this changes 4 times during his career. I'm just wondering, are these changes solely like by the Board of Education? Is there a think tank? Who do they involve? Who's involved with these?
It is the Board of Education.
Only?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is opportunity, there has been opportunity over the past several years, that we knew this change was gonna happen 4 years ago, and there were public hearings that you could go to and have an opinion. There was teacher focus groups. There was voice was able to be heard. Whether that voice was taken into some action, I don't know that. But yeah, this is strictly Board of Education. This has been in the works for about 4 years, the original planning of this. New generation, obviously, in the spring. This is a new test. We haven't seen this test. There's been some tryouts in other school districts the last couple of years of the new test. So the answer to your question is Board of Education.
So is that, it appears to be solely their decision based on the criteria that they received from all the districts. I would like, I don't know, I'm not trying to criticize them, but I would think that they would welcome more input from other areas or other groups. But who am I to say? But I think people such as yourselves within this district, this school, you have a vast amount of knowledge that you've garnered over the decades here, and this is a pretty good school, we all think, that maybe we should share that firsthand with them. But I don't know, do we submit anything to them, or they just base it on facts, on what we...
There was opportunity for feedback for anyone who, there was multiple public hearings, and, they've asked for feedback from school districts. We had opportunities over the years, every time they made a change to do this. I mean, and then this, obviously personal opinion. Every educator has a personal opinion. I'm not shy to share mine. There's way too much testing. I've said that a million times, and I'll continue to say it a million times publicly. There's too much testing, way too much testing. Do we need a test? Yes. Is it way too much? I absolutely believe so, and I would think that 80% of the educators would say the same thing I say in regards to that. And here's the bad news, Mr. LeMay. In 4 years, 5 years, we'll probably have a new test, most likely. That's the bad news about this.
Well, my way of thinking is that, I don't know, maybe I should pay a little more attention, but I think at some point I'd like to be able to speak about it.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
So can I just add that MAVA has been a voice as well
MAVA
with
has?
the Department of Education on behalf of vocational technical schools to give their input, and they're working with the state as well.
Okay, so we have some more questions. Mr. Gigi?
Thank you. You said 74% of the schools fell within the accepted. Where within that 74% did Greater Lowell Tech kind of fall?
50% range.
50.
Right in the middle, 50% range.
Is there any reason that we fell in the middle? Because I sit here on a monthly basis. I think the school's doing really well. Is there a way that we can improve that? What are you seeing so that we can kind of move that number up within the 74?
As we mentioned, I think we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides, but we had mentioned last year, when we found the target areas, we spent a lot of time looking at those target areas. And we talked about that during the budget process, which is important too. How do we match up to some of those improvements financially? That's a little piece of it, but a lot of it is systemic too. How do we make those changes? We're going to talk about that in a second. But as Mr. Barton mentioned earlier, the ranking system, the weighting system, and how we fall on that 50% is made up of those four criteria pieces now with absenteeism, which that's one of the questions. That's a key area for us going forward, is trying to match up and making sure we do a good job of it now. We got to do a real better job of getting kids in staying coming to school. I mean, that's one area. that's huge for us. And, there could be some financial implications, we might need some help to be able to do that, and that's for a budget process. The other piece too is the growth piece measures students against other like schools. So it's almost like a ranking system, which, a lot of people don't like, including myself. I always found the value, and I think a lot of educators feel this way, is being able to look at each student's results, and to be able to improve and help that student based on the data we see for that student. Well, the way the criteria is put together, we're measured against other people. Frankly and honestly, I don't care that much about that. I care more about the kids that are here and what they can do and how they can get from here to here, rather than we need to beat another school district. I'm not too concerned about that. Other schools are concerned about it, let them be concerned about it. I'm concerned about the data that we get from this test and how we can make changes, data-driven changes for the better. That's, I think, the value of the state test brings to us as educators. Being able to see the data, having pertinent, critical discussions, teachers discussing that, having that in the hands of teachers, able to see this data and say, well, what do we do? This decision is not made here in this room. It's made by teachers, and that's the way it should be. The teachers need to make that decision, be part of that decision-making process. So I know I went off a little bit.
Just briefly, but for a follow-up, that is rated with all the school districts within the state of Massachusetts, right? All right. On a vocational level, because vocational training is very important to us, how is our school doing in that category?
So the one thing is that is not included in this system.
That's a flaw, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That is not included in
Maybe
this
Curtis ought to get
system.
involved then at another level.
Well, I think that's why MAVA is involved to advocate for the vocational technical schools, which have another mission in providing students a vocational technical education to be career ready, which is not considered in a part of this accountability system.
Interesting. It's unfortunate.
Okay, next question, Mr. Booton. Thank you, Mr. Gagey.
I have a couple of questions. As far as classification for our school, I think when I first got here, we were at 13%. Like last year, we were at 46%. Did we get those numbers yet, where we're at?
Yeah, 39%.
So we dropped.
Well,
So you can't compare the system.
yeah, so we're at the 39th percentile, and
Why
So-
can't we compare it?
Because it's a different system.
I'm comparing it right now. I'm saying, all right,
Well,
we went down 7 points.
It's
Tell me why
interesting.
it's not a
Yeah,
good
it's interesting that you're asking that, and
reason.
and I think you should ask it. So, as Superintendent Mastrocola was saying, so this system was in process for many years. But to be honest with you, this system was actually presented in the spring of last year. So I remember going to the Department of Ed and sitting there, and with all school districts across the Commonwealth, vast socioeconomic school districts. And everybody there was flabbergasted by this new report card and the way that things would be looked at, such as chronic absenteeism, and most critically, that lowest 25% that we all kind of gasped at when Ms. Davis described that the lowest 25% drives 50% of your report card. And how that lowest 25% is defined as they take the 8th grade scores of math and English and they combine them, and that is your lowest 25%. Okay, it's about 135 students in the 9th grade class. So that 135 determines your 50% of your report card. So that wasn't in place in previous report cards. So when we look at the 39th percentile, yes, we dropped. However, there are 8 different indicators that were not even factored in previous years. So even the Department of Ed said, we know, school committees are going to look at this and going to say, how come you dropped? And they said, everybody's going to drop. And that's, from what I understand, what happened. Every community had dropped. So that's really the reality of it all. Yes, we should look at it, but we've got a whole new holistic focus now in the school district. It's not just MCAS scores and achievement and growth. It's
Chronic absentees.
Chronic absenteeism.
Graduation rate.
Extended engagement rate. which, as I said,
Proficiency
is
of
brand new.
ELL students.
That's another
AP courses.
AP courses.
So the other.
How do the AP courses factor in?
So that counts for 10% of the formula. So
Let me ask
Go
this
ahead.
question. So we're basing off of 8th grade MCAS and how they progress towards 10th grade MCAS,
Yes.
correct?
that's the growth
So
model.
this is
yes.
this is not even talking about our juniors and seniors.
Correct.
Do we have AP courses now? I thought we didn't have any 9th grade AP courses.
We have one 10th grade AP course.
So we have an AP, and when do they take the MCAS?
10th grade.
10th grade.
No, I know it's the 10th grade, but when? Like September, October, November?
This is springtime.
In the spring.
So you basically have an AP course for a student that's going to have 5 months?
No, it's for AP courses school-wide.
So yeah,
It's a school-wide.
let me
Ed.
let me
But a
clarify
10th
that.
grader, coming
No,
in.
not just a 10th grader, school-wide.
So the AP courses factor in, the way they factor in is, does the school offer them? And that's how they're factored in. It's not who scores 5 or 4 on them. It's not how many students enroll. It's, does the school district offer AP classes? So the interesting thing is, I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but it's a great question. These are all great questions. We scored 4 out of 4 points for advanced placement courses. Okay? Shawsheen Tech, not to compare, got 2 out of 4 because they don't offer as many advanced placement courses. Greater New Bedford, 4 out of 4. They offer advanced placement classes. Greater Lawrence, don't quote me, I don't remember how many, but it's certainly not 4 out of 4. Okay, so you were asked about the comparisons of things. You can pull things out, which I have because I was curious about how are other school districts doing? What are the things that we're doing well, and what and how can we improve upon them? The AP courses that we're offering, we scored well for that because we jumped ahead of that.
So
we
having
had the
them-
foresight as a school to start
But I'm
offering
saying
them.
having the AP courses and helping, because what I'm seeing from this big picture is stop taking extra kids into your school because we're on a grading system, and those lower kids that are coming in are going to be in that 25% that we have to work with. It's going to hurt our grades. They're going to be those kids that become in the extended 5-year grad rate. Those kids that we're taking in that are the ones that are on the waiting list right now, they're more apt to be on that list. And what they're doing is going to be forcing those kids in some schools not to be taken in because of those things. So is that kind of
Well,
what
right,
I'm seeing?
Is they don't
I mean, we're
really-
taking them, I understand
Yeah,
that, but they're going to affect us 50%.
I don't think they want the lower kids to be left behind. No student
Yeah.
left behind.
So
Yeah.
everyone's
I think you're right,
weighted on the bottom.
Mr. Gigi.
That's the
I think that was the
emphasis.
emphasis
They
with
don't,
this.
but in a school
with
like
this-
us that has an admissions policy, it's going to make it more difficult for those kids to get into other vocational schools that have an admissions policy like ours. If you're in the Lowell school system, Drake, Tingsboro, Dunstable, you have no, you have to educate those kids. Where we have some leeway bringing kids in, we're forcing more and more kids in, and we have over the past years. We've increased our
We're moving
enrollment.
from our mission, vocational training. All right? And that kinda
Because this
upsets me
becomes
a
the
little
focus
bit.
in how we set up. So let me move on to my other
Well-
questions. Because
Okay.
I see it's affecting our numbers, but I'm okay with us bringing kids in and having a little bit lower numbers if we're helping those kids graduate. And I think there's other things you can do to help that 5-year graduation rate. Why is science so tough for years now, since I've been here? That's the thing that we're having trouble with. Is there any way you can track or give us a report that shows us those kids that are having the worst MCAS and what schools they're coming from specifically, where they're having the toughest? Because am I wrong to assume that they're not getting the base and that's why they're struggling to do better in MCAS?
Well, one of the challenges is when they take the MCAS test, they're taking biology for the first time for the most part. So they don't offer biology in
8th grade.
8th grade and middle school. So biology, when they take it, it's a brand new subject. And one of the things areas we're struggling in is students that are English language learners and students with disabilities. And given the vocabulary and the nature of biology, that is a significant challenge that we're really focusing in on for areas to improve. So that's one area.
So it comes back to the language barrier?
Right. So, we stood before you last year and we said students with disability is our main focus and we need to improve that. And as you can see, we did.
You did.
Okay. and we hope to continue to do that. I would say now, going on into the future here at our school, English language learners and is going to be the main area of focus in the school district, and I would say across the Commonwealth, if not the nation. Students whose first language is not English is going to be and is a major area of focus for school districts, especially this one. And that colors, and as you know, that includes their progress in vocational technical subjects, as well as science, math, and English. And that's an area that the state is focusing on, and we have to do as well, and we are.
Mr. Gagey.
So what are we going to do to try to foster the skills in language? Is it more time in English, or is it a different teaching method, or?
I think it's all, and feel free to jump in here, but I think it's a little bit of everything here. It's exposure to language, for sure. I think it's making sure that if you're a content area teacher, such as math or science, you're including English language arts skills in science, such as vocabulary development, reading comprehension. So, if you're a science or math teacher, it's not, it's really not just teaching science or math anymore. It's being able to be a language teacher in that content area, which is not something necessarily natural for people. It's not something natural for people, but the state, for example, is requiring everyone to take a sheltered English endorsement class, right? Now, we can debate the value of whether or not that class has the rich content to be able to do that, but the Justice Department was the one who mandated that the state of Massachusetts focused on sheltered English immersion because they know that this is a civil rights issue, and so every teacher in the Commonwealth who has English language learners has had to enroll in that course and have that stamped on their license.
This year it includes the technical instructors.
Correct, yeah. So.
Right. Mr. O'Hare?
It's a long time ago, but a gentleman by the name of Franklin Jennifer, who was the Commissioner of Education, and this goes back 20 years ago, and he was saying the same thing that you're saying today, that why are these bilingual kids not doing well? And the answer he gave me was because they don't know their own language, and they have to learn their own language before they can learn speaking as we do in the United States. But that seems to be, kind of, when I'm listening here, seems as though everything kind of falls in, language, how are we going to do it? And you're not teaching, ABCD, and somebody else who just arrived here doesn't even know how to speak his own language. I don't know how they're going to, well, let me just say this. That issue has been on the floor for many years, and it doesn't seem to be improving.
It's interesting, because that almost falls back on the parents to teach their native language so that they can be accepted into the American English language, and we don't teach their own language, we teach English.
Right. Yes, correct. We don't have a bilingual program.
So is there a way to incorporate the parents into the learning process?
Well, let me just speak from a little bit of knowledge. I grew up in an Arabic-speaking household. So, people spoke Arabic in my household, so that's what the kids go home to. There's Khmer-speaking languages, there's Hispanic-speaking households, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty difficult to sort of walk into the school and think that I was going to sort of be, on an advanced level, because when I went home, generally, Arabic was the most...
Or were you learning the grammar skills in that at home too? Or was it the language? You could communicate in Arabic, but did you learn all the basics about grammar and punctuation and that from home, or?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. When I came home with my book, of course, it was all me and by myself, and I had to sort of teach myself by doing the homework, and could go to school the next day and see where I was. And of course, frequently I was sort of pulled off, stayed after school in order to, not on behavior issues like you might think, but to basically get tutored.
That's your opinion.
Just to, okay, so, but to get off that for a second, let's go, I think Mr. Booton has a question.
I was going to wait till the end. I guess I want to hear, I saw the areas in need of improvement. I want to hear what our action plan is. I want to know if we're going to be hiring pull-out specialists, and this may be not for this meeting, but going forward and when we're doing budgeting. what else can we do to get the ninth graders coming in and those 10th graders ready?
Okay, so let's wait for that
So-
till we get to
So
the end.
we're not
Mr.
presenting
Lemay?
action plan tonight.
Yeah,
This meeting?
Mike,
Yep, go ahead.
you had, during your explanation on page 7, the ELA, the percentage went up from 49 to 69.
Sure.
Well,
Now-
can we get to that in just a minute? I think I have a question, because I'm trying to categorize this thing by ordinary students, and then we'll go back to the
Okay.
student with disabilities.
Sure.
Is that okay? So,
It's fine.
I have a question here. I waited. It's, firstly, congratulations. It looks like we've really moved up in the proficiency standard, especially amongst the ELA, for all students, and for all students. Everything really moved well. I think, there's two things that stick out to me. The first thing is, Ray touched on it, which is the science. And with the science, it looks to me our advance last year was at 21%, and this year our advance is 10%. Granted, our proficient went from the same number, 45% to 55%, so it's sort of relative, but, how are we sort of losing track of that, being advanced? And then I'll just ask my second question, just because I sort of have the floor at this moment. And that's going to be on, my mistake here, I think it was the math, so let me go to the math real quick. And I saw the math, our graph, and, what did I say there? And failing, or went up from 7% to 10%. Well, for the most part, the needs improvement and the failing went from 30 to 32% from last year to this year. So, math has always seemed to be a problem. And I'm sure it's a problem in other school districts across the state of Massachusetts. My problem is I sort of only look at the grade level text, and I should go on the state website and see that math's a problem across the state, and I don't have that exact answer. So, so how do we improve on those two things that I just touched on really quickly, if you don't mind?
So starting with science, to address your first question, what I would look at is the reason why, students score, and you can spend all day thinking, why do they score below, and why didn't they maintain a consistency in advance? I would point to the next generation test. The test is significantly different. The test's content and the frameworks are brand new. So again, the state is pushing toward us new frameworks in English, new frameworks in math, new frameworks in science, and the teachers are implementing those new frameworks. And with that, there's a new test, and the test questions are significantly different than previous years because the frameworks are different. So I would liken that toward an adjustment period. That is why you're seeing a dip there in the students that are scoring advanced. For math, math has always been a struggle in our school district, as you rightly pointed out. I think if you look at our feeder schools and our main districts in Lowell, you're going to see that the middle schools are struggling with math. So the students that we're acquiring are grades behind. Okay, so the teachers here are playing catch up, and they're doing their best to try to supplant what students have missed, as well as providing intervention programs for students who need it. So it's not just the whole class that might be behind, but there are students that are significantly grade behind when we get them. Okay, because if you look at their 8th grade scores and you look at their 7th grade scores, you can see that in the data. The other thing is, one of the things we did last year based on the scores with students with disabilities, we hired an instructional coach to work side by side with a math instructor. That was designed to improve the ability of students who need extra help in the class, and also students that can go further. So it's not just students that need extra help, but you might have a number of students in the class that have the ability to go further in math, but the teacher is helping students that need the extra help.
Immediate attention.
Because what you're seeing with math is you have, and it's true with English, but I think it's more so with math, a wide variety of grade level ability when they enter the school. And you see it in the Stanford test. The entrance exam we give in the spring, you see it there. Okay?
There's major gaps in basic math skills.
Majorly.
Okay.
And the last thing I just want to say is, so the MCAS test covers algebra and geometry. Okay? Geometry is a very different subject than algebra. So again, not only are some students behind grades, but then they're being introduced to two different types of mathematics. Similarly, like we talked about in science, it's
Within 2
different
years.
terminology and different ways of thinking about the world.
All right, thank you. Just for the sake of knowledge, how many students take the special needs test, if you will, and then how many students take what's the breakdown?
I can give that to you right now.
Right?
It's the same test for all
Well, sure,
students.
yeah, but how many students, it's the same test with both students, okay. So
Same
there's no-
test.
So how many disability students do we categorized, I guess, in our sophomore class? Because that's,
99. Oh wait, hang on. Let me just make sure I give you the right answer because I'm looking at it.
I think Jeff has it. You know, about 106
Let me just take a look.
That's for all students?
in the sophomore class.
Last year it was 99. This year could very well be 106.
It was 106 or so.
No,
Okay.
last year it was 99. We didn't take the test yet for this year, so it would be 99.
So
thank
in
you.
the spring of 2018, there were 99 students with disabilities who took
Okay,
the test.
that was just for the sake of knowledge. Mr. O'Hare, question?
Yeah, just one quick question, but I was always under the impression, and we were at least at one time, it's like a 50-50 ratio. 50% of the time you're in the technical area and 50% of the time you're in the academic area. Does that still exist? And if it does, how do you balance?
Well, that's one of the difficulties,
Yeah.
is how do we embed intervention into the tight schedule that we have and still provide students with a vocational technical education?
So we're basically maybe a few steps behind when someone is in an academic class all.
A comprehensive high
Yeah,
school, yeah,
right.
we have limited, yes,
It's
it's
a-
exactly
It's,
it.
you hit upon, and I'm not making excuses, but you hit upon a reality here. So the major area that we fall down in when you look at that category, that system that Ms. Davis described with achievement and growth and then chronic absenteeism and advanced place mark, the area that we fall behind on significantly is growth. And Superintendent Mastrocola described that very well in comparison to school districts. So growth is defined as, we all take the MCAS test. 500 kids take the MCAS test. And you're compared against students of a similar demographic across the Commonwealth. So for example, kids who are at another school district that are getting more English, more math, and more science because they're not in their technical areas are getting more attention in that academic area. But your scores are compared against them. That is the area of growth. It's called student growth percentile. So when you look at our students are doing well, but in other school districts, comprehensive academic schools, they have exposure to more of the subject content area, and they have electives as well in that subject area. So that's an area that we fall behind in because we're not necessarily focusing on that because we're focusing on
Our
the technical
elective is
program.
vocational technical education.
And that's a key factor in things that plays heavily into this.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we're still measuring our school the year over year, and we're still seeing decreases in some of the areas.
And we're seeing some improvement too, and that's in the area of achievement. So achievement, which
Is
is the
year to year.
largest,
Right.
is how did you do on the MCAS test?
But I'm seeing some less kids at advance, more needs of improvement or failing
Mhm.
in some of these scores. So overall, I understand that because
Sure.
I've been here for 5 years. I understand the struggle that you go through having every other week of comprehensive. But on the other hand, we're seeing things going down. So we still need to do some work here, not just comparing us to other schools.
Completely.
Like I'm seeing a
Absolutely.
drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
We
not missing out.
definitely, we
yeah,
definitely
sure.
know that
Yeah,
there's
So
room
we need
for
to come up with a
improvement.
plan. I know we hired 2 new science teachers last year, a math. What else is needed? I guess now I'll ask that question. Do you want to talk about this at another meeting? What resources we have? Come up with a plan? Do we have pull-out sessions? Do we have, teachers taking these kids out? I'm not sure what we can do if they have an extra class
We want
or.
to talk about it in another meeting, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, this is something,
yeah.
we're being measured by this, bottom line. It is a measurement. We know with all the Skills USA, we know with our kids going out into co-op, we know our kids going out getting career-ready jobs, half the kids moving on to higher education. we've got that part. Our juniors and seniors, we're doing terrific, but this is still a focus. And one thing I will say, this is focused on that bottom 25%, giving them so much weight. We've been dealt a certain hand of cards. We've got to play that hand. I understand that. But I'll commend the staff, the school, for going and doing and taking care of those kids that are already advanced, those already kids that are proficient, and now adding AP. So we're not forgetting about those students either, and that's important for us as a school system. Yes, we have to focus on getting everybody up, but don't forget about our resources and having those kids that can achieve greatness.
Oh, absolutely. We're
Just
going to
because they're
continue
good,
to.
they're not fine.
Our plan
Make
is
them
to
great.
continue to add more advanced placement classes.
Just briefly, because
Briefly?
I know we want to move on.
Okay. Well, we have to go to our next category.
Is
so
it
just to let you
because
know.
of the change in the testing or the weight that we saw some falling in those areas? That's what I'm hearing. It's hard to compare this year with last year or the year before because they changed the formula on us.
We also got a new group of students taking the test.
So
each
how do
year.
we compare ourselves when we look at this data if they keep changing the formula? It's and that's a challenge for the committee, I guess, and that's why we're relying on you.
Well, right now, they're
It's a
in
challenge for us, too.
Yeah.
we're in a transition period.
Right.
We're completely in a transition period. That's
so
why
it-
they're advising
Even
that
though
we.
Ray sees the decline.
Right, that's why they're advising that we don't compare, because we're in a transition period.
Thank you.
So the next category of questions is going to be the students with disabilities. Mr. Lemay, I think
Yeah.
you had a question?
The ELA, again, back on page 7. I'm just trying to understand, like, for 2015, we're at 52%, 53% at 16, and 49 and 17, and now we're 69 and 18. And that is solely, the disparity, does it just boil down to freshmen and sophomore as far as the diversity goes?
Well, this would be for the sophomore class, and I think it also boils down to.
It's just a big, I'm just trying to
it's a big
comprehend.
jump.
I understand somewhat the changes, although I'm not happy, but I was just trying to get a better understanding on the disparity there.
Should we have Mr. Albert come up? Maybe answer some of those questions? I'm sure you work with the students with disabilities daily, right?
Good evening, gentlemen.
I'm just trying to get a better understanding, that's all.
What's your question again? The jump from 49.
Well, years 15, 16, and 17 were within 4%, and we jumped from 49 to 69, 20% in 1 year.
Right. So why, right? Question like,
Well,
how did that
it jumps
happen?
out at me, and
So
if we're just dealing with that segment of the population, what happened? That's,
So last year, our entire school community made a commitment to focus on students with disabilities. And it truly took a village, I think, of everyone pitching in to try to get some growth for these kids. So what we experienced in these are probably some of the highest scores ever in Greater Lowell's history for students with disabilities, the highest spikes, ELA gaining 20 points and math gaining 12 points. When I sit back and I think and try to process how that happened, obviously it's a point for huge celebration. And I really want to think that happened because our students made these gains because they're consistently immersed in good teaching.
well, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear it's
So-
from the faculty and the students
So-
versus
so
the changes that
some of the
the state
reasons-
is putting on us.
Some of the reasons why I think our students are consistently immersed in good teaching that has its focus on learning. Sounds pretty basic, but as a collective group of educators, for the last 5 years, we've really tried to shift our culture from having more conversations about learning and less conversations about teaching. And I think that because of that, we as a whole school community have focused on talking about good what good learning looks like. So students with disabilities made these gains really due to the collective effort of their teachers, both in special ed, mainstream academic teachers, and all the other teachers who support struggling learners. The other piece of it, I think I'm blessed and fortunate to work with an administrative team and cluster chairs who really believe that our students can learn at high levels. Roger started that mantra that, never give up on our students. All students can learn at high levels. We as a staff maintain that philosophy of rigor. Many hours of meetings with cluster chairs, various department interventions have played a role in this growth. Specifically in special ed, our study skills classes have added a little more emphasis on improving reading, vocabulary, math, and problem-solving skills for higher order thinking. More scaffolding, more practice of skills happening across study skills classes. So those are some of the major reasons why I think students with disabilities have shown that level of growth in a year's time.
I think the word's getting out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen next year, but
Right.
I think
Yeah. Well, I don't think-
everyone's hearing what a good job we're doing. It might go up another 20%. I don't know.
I don't know. I would caution you. I would caution the committee to think that we're going to have that kind of growth again,
Well,
because we're shifting to MCAS 2.0, right? So we're going to a computer-based test. So our energy now is to provide professional development and training in this new model, so that our teachers are equipped to arm our students with what they need to be successful on this test. So if it's a computer-based test, we have to focus our technology and our efforts more on taking tests using the computer and integrating that technology into what we do every day.
So we don't move away from this, we just entail other aspects.
Right. We bring whatever MCAS 2.0 is bringing, we have to adapt our approach to meet the needs of our kids. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
No, there's a lot to absorb, that's all. As a committeeman, there's a lot for me to absorb, and I'm trying to do the best I can. Sorry if I asked too many questions.
No, it's a complex thing to try to pull apart.
Yeah.
When you see that level of growth in a year's time, and we're all celebrating that piece of it, but there's a lot of moving parts that made that happen.
There's a lot to comprehend because it changes every several years or
Right.
whatever, every other year.
It's not just one thing, it's many things, but it's really focused in consistent good teaching practices.
I thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
anybody else? Okay, I have a question. It comes back to that 25%, they're using 25% of our school. Mr. Roberts, toward you.
Should I stay or should
Yeah,
I go?
please. So I'm looking at the ELA, students with disabilities, and I noticed, our failing kids, right, because it's all about the bottom 25%. This is what I keep hearing, right? And this is how the 50% of the bottom 25% get 50% of the score. Is that what it is? So it comes down to that failing part. With the students with disabilities in ELA went from 8% in failing to 14%. Now, congratulations. I mean, you've done a wonderful job as far as, getting to the proficient level from 49% to 69%. So where do we lose the kids to go, from 8% failing in 17 to 14% failing in 18?
Yeah, Fred, that's probably from in my role, my most concerning data point, to see an increase in students with disabilities failing the test. When I try to analyze that a little bit, I see that we are through the team meeting process immersing more kids in taking risks with kids who would previously maybe not take MCAS, to now saying these kids are displaying evidence such as Mr. Basner tonight. They can do this with a more scaffolded, thought-through approach. So some of that spike, not all of it, some of that spike is that some of these kids that wouldn't have taken MCAS are now getting the instruction and taking MCAS, and they're initially struggling with it. It's taking them longer. They're experiencing some failure. They're working hard to try to get from failure to needs improvement. So I think some of that spike is attributed to a cohort of kids who are now taking the test.
So am I hearing that some kids don't have to take the test?
There are some students that through their team meeting process, the team has decided with the parents' input that they need to be working on a different curriculum because of their disability, and they don't take their regular MCAS exam. They do a
Because they
portfolio
can stay here a little
assessment.
longer.
They do a portfolio assessment. That's a very, very
Comprehensive process.
comprehensive and very serious decision when a team makes a decision to say this student will be measured, their progress will be measured through a portfolio versus an MCAS test. So it's a very low number. The state likes to see really less than 1% of your group taking a portfolio. But we do have kids at Greater Lowell who fit that category. We also have a cohort of kids who are now taking the test. And they're in mainstream classes and they're working hard, and we're supporting them so they can get a diploma. And many of them are succeeding.
Sure, so they're getting the diploma within 4 to 5 years, maybe.
Right, a little longer, yeah. they don't
Sometimes
do-
a little longer.
Little longer,
Sometimes a little
5,
longer.
6 years.
Those are the special needs kids.
Yes.
Okay.
But this system is focused on the first time they take the test in that 10th grade year. And that's what has an impact in the accountability system.
On that cohort.
For that first time they took the test. It doesn't take into consideration that the first time they might have got needs improvement, but the second time they took it, they were proficient. Our accountability is based on that first time.
Okay. So now is it possible for us to get that number to go back down?
Yes.
You know, because I think that would probably be pretty important because
it's
it comes back to
possible.
that 25% and 50% category.
I do think it's possible, but I'd be really curious to see how we're being measured now, you know, that with that bottom 25% being 50% of our report card. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Right. Because we're always being measured at the end of the
Yes.
day.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we just want to sort of stay, that nobody's coming in here and questioning how we do things, so. Okay, well, good work for you guys. So I'm going to let you, does anybody else have any more questions, or should we let them finish their presentation?
Good.
Great.
Two more slides, I think. One more slide.
Why don't we go to the side areas of improvement? I thought we were just gonna skip over it.
So, you know, I think we looked at chronic absenteeism and advanced coursework. We covered that. Chronic absenteeism is defined as students that are 10% or more out of school. The state is tracking that in terms of both unexcused and excused absences. So that is an area of focus that guidance department, the main office, and a number of other people will need to focus on, which is again is brand new and it's included in the report card. We covered the advanced coursework completion, so Ms. Davis is going to cover the areas to improve. And I think you'll see that we covered much of this, but I think it's good to go over
So
again.
once again, I'm just gonna go over, tonight we're prepared to say that even though we're happy and proud of the gains that we made, that we're well aware that we still need to continue to work on improvement. And the areas of focus that we're going to focus on is ELL students and their progress towards English acquisition, as we spoke about, the focus on chronic absenteeism, continue to expand our AP courses, focus on students with disabilities in all areas, and continue to improve the growth in the area of ELA, mathematics and science, and continue to focus on moving students from proficient to advanced.
Thank you.
And those are our areas of improvement. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Again,
for the
thank you for
presentation.
your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
As they keep moving. Yeah, but I think that
Anyone need a water?
changed.
Oh, I may get. Oh, turn the projector off? Show's got it. Okay, great work. Okay, and go ahead, Mr. Master Cole, one last piece.
you. I'm going to pass that back over to you.
Okay, so we had the superintendent director end of cycle evaluation report that we all submitted. And overall, it looks like the superintendent got a outstanding grade, considering we're just getting off of grades from MCAS and such like that. Looks like, for the most part, he averaged 4s, you know, clearly an A on his tasks of professional practice, student learning, and district-wide improvement. And he got more of the same as far as the goals and on the standards, the overall summative performance of the goals and the standards, and the rate impact on student learning. So I think we all sort of came up with some very similar types of scores, and I just want to congratulate our superintendent for, I guess, a job well done. Does anybody have a comment?
I think we're all pretty pleased.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tatsias. Anybody else? Okay.
I would just probably chime in, Mr. Superintendent, if there's something, whether it's individually or as a whole, as a group, if there's something we can assist you with, being relatively new to the area as far as reaching out to other public officials or getting, I know you've been out in the community, I'm pretty impressed on that end of it. Just, if you wanted to broaden that more and you need some assistance, I know myself, I'd be more than happy to help you chime in there.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, and I guess, I mean, just for a mere formality, we might want to consider taking a vote to accept the superintendent's evaluation. I mean, we all voted, we all basically turned in our own scores and such like that, and I'm sure it's just a mere formality, but at least that way, we're on record for accepting it.
It's a great point, Mr. Interim Chairman.
As the annual evaluation plan.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Booton, second by Mr. O'Hare. Roll call to accept the superintendent end-of-cycle evaluation.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
Okay, so now it's time for our report of our business manager, who's working overtime tonight.
It's nothing new for George.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, the first item in my agenda here is just to give you an update on the financials. The end-of-year report for fiscal 18 was submitted with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed the end of September, so it was in by the due date. And it was also forwarded to our independent auditors so they could start doing some of their preliminary work. In addition, the forms that were required, the financial forms were submitted to the Department of Revenue and getting their preparation for the certifying the excess and deficiency. That was submitted the October 2nd. So both of those are out. I touched base with the field rep from the Department of Revenue. She confirmed she had the documents that she needed, and as soon as she get through some of the ones in front, she'll hopefully get to ours in a couple of weeks. So I'll keep you posted on that. The second item is regarding the OPEB trust. I know it was the subject was brought up in the spring. Basically, just to give you a little history, back in October 2015, the board at the time voted to accept the section of the law to establish the OPEB trust. And at that time, the committee also voted to adopt the trust agreement. And nothing, since then, a year or so after that, there were changes to the law, which Billy Joe had done legwork on, and I had confirmed also that we would have to have a revote of the new section, as well as voting on a revised trust agreement to comply with the new laws. So I have forwarded the copies to our legal department, and they're reviewing them. And actually, I was just speaking with Mike. I hope to have all of these things together, hopefully by the next committee meeting. Maybe it's up to chair, vice chair, or the superintendent, whether a subcommittee meeting may be warranted prior. It's called.
Is this a mere formality for words that are being changed by the state?
Well, I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on what is going to be going on in the process. There are a few votes. I believe what the intent is for the trust to be, obviously the treasurer of the district would be the custodian, and the district was looking into having the funds deposited with the State Retirement Benefit Trust Fund Board to handle the investment side of it. So there are resolutions and votes that are required by them also. So there's quite a few things, so I'd probably want to have them all together and not to bombard you. It's up to you
One
at
meeting
that
might
time.
tighten it all up, and
Yes.
we begin to move forward,
Yeah.
put that behind us.
Right, because you've already appropriated the money. You've appropriated 200,000 in fiscal 18 and another 300. So once these votes are taken and the trust agreement with the State Retirement Board is executed, then we would in turn be able to transfer the funds into their custody and to invest on our behalf. So I will keep you posted on that.
Okay, Mr. Booton has a
Yeah,
question?
I would think, just a suggestion, I would think it'd be either a committee of the whole or at the general meeting, because it is
Okay.
complicated. There is a lot to learn, and I think everybody, because it's something that's so new, we'd all want to be here for it. So I'm not sure a subcommittee, unless we do it before the meeting as a whole.
Mhm.
So, just
So
my
are we looking-
recommendation.
Are we looking 4 weeks out, or are we looking more like 8 weeks?
I will know, within the next couple of weeks, I think we'll get it.
How much time do you think you'd need to,
December meeting.
more than
Depends
the
on
hour
how
and a
many.
half we just
No,
took?
no, I don't believe
I
so.
mean, if it's no more than what we just
They're
went through
just
with.
formality votes that are required in resolutions that need to be adopted.
So
Well,
it sounds
you-
like about 45 minutes to an hour, or less?
Hopefully, yeah.
And if it has questions, we can put it off for 4 weeks?
Yeah, there's
and
no,
Come back with those questions that we have?
Okay, so let's look at a
I
possible
would think the meeting, just the
subcommittee
general,
before the meeting.
I was thinking just a general meeting, if it's only
all
gonna
right,
be
that's
a
fine.
half hour.
That was
Have it
just,
during the meeting, and if we need to postpone for 4 weeks, this isn't a time crisis type thing,
no,
right?
Oh, it is.
just a suggestion,
Okay.
it's up to you, your
Am
preference.
I wrong? Does everybody wanna be there?
Yeah, we're gonna put a,
Those questions poised would be dealt with legal counsel.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
We
we'll
would have
be
touched
ready to
base.
adopt them, I'm sure.
That's correct, but I just want you to know there will be a few, and so
Yeah.
no surprises.
yep.
Okay?
Committee of the whole, I think that's a good idea, Ray.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item was on our electricity. Our current electricity supply agreement ends in December. As you know, you may recall, we had a contract with TransCanada for supply, and this past spring, it was assigned to EDF Energy Services. So that's ending in December, and so we were looking to go out for procurement for new electricity supply pricing. We were going to utilize the services of Access Energy Group, an energy broker, to assist in soliciting our electric pricing from the suppliers. I don't know, I was informed that our previous broker, Bay State Consultants, with John Shortsleeve, as you may remember, they've moved on their business into a different modeling plan, so I recommended this company here, very experienced. We've had a couple of meetings already, and ready to go, so I just wanted to keep you abreast of that, and we'll update you as we get better information. Unless anybody has a question.
I was just going to make a comment on that. Mr. O'Hare, you're the chair of the subcommittee for alternative energy. I have a motion forward to see if we can get more net metering credits, so once we get somebody in, I think we can have that meeting and work on that, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Very good. And just, my last piece is just a follow-up from the last meeting regarding the procurement policy. We talked about, proposed revision to our policy to align it with the state Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B. There was discussion on the range from procurement from under 5,000, which is obtained through sound business practice, and the different ranges for the quotes and for bids. And committee member Booton had asked a question regarding some numbers as far as what we solicit for quotes and also on bids, if I understood that correctly. So I provide that, and it's just before the committee, whatever the decision may be. It's just, this was one of the items on the list that was brought forward to me that were hanging out there, and I was bringing it forward, carrying the torch. But it's up to the committee, whichever you prefer.
Question by Mr. Booton.
I do.
Yes, sir.
The numbers don't seem like it's a terrible burden, 25 to 30 quotes to get for the 5 to 25 range, and then there was only 16 bids over 25.
Correct.
I think if it becomes burdensome, then we may need to change our policy, but tell me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't, having 40 bids, 40 to 45, and Kempton kind of brought this up, if there's not that many and we're doing it okay, if it's a hindrance and it's stopping, student learning or stopping us from getting the supplies we need, then obviously you'd want to be able to do that, but I'm looking at the amount of quotes. We should kind of keep it as we are and keep our thumb on the pennies and nickels to be conservative. I also feel like this creates less of an issue for somebody that's putting something out to bid. Sorry, the rule is we've got to do this at that. They may have a friend in that type of business. It takes the any onerous off of that person to have a friend do something or somebody that they know. So I think the policy now should stay.
I guess the only question that I would have is, does anybody find this to be burdensome? Or are they taking from something else at the school they could be doing that would be beneficial to learning?
I'm not, I live by, they've lived by these policies. We might have had a couple of situations where it may have created a little delay in getting something because they had to go through
The process.
But it's not a,
Overwhelmed.
no.
Okay.
Can I ask Ms. Davis if she's aware of any issues you've had with bidding out for something and it took longer because we had this policy in place? Not huge?
No,
Okay.
just want to bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garabedian.
Thank you, Mr. Garabedian.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you, George. You're looking good.
Okay, old business. Any items on the agenda brought up under this section will be for discussion purposes only. Action will be deferred to a future meeting. Any old business? Okay, none. Outstanding items from previous meetings. Doesn't look like much has changed, so should we keep moving forward?
Yes.
Great. New business, any items not on the agenda brought up under this section will be for discussion purposes only as well. Actions
Mr.
will be
Bahu.
deferred to a future meeting. Go ahead, sir.
I'd just like to comment on the, having been here last night at the, and that Mr. Mastrocola brought up to me, a new lighting in the bus terminal, the tunnel. Really lit it up. I personally drove through there last night to check it out.
It looked
because
nice?
It was wicked dark in there.
Did you find the other end?
It looked nice?
I was at the back out. And another comment,
Hold on, it didn't blind you at all? It wasn't too bright? All right, we weren't going
no, it
into
was
heaven,
perfect. It was actually
unfortunately.
good. And it was very dark. I didn't get your drift, Mr. Bahu.
No, Miss.
Anyways, something else I'd like to bring up to the superintendent, and it was brought up by the police officers here tonight. You know, when school gets out, you know, there's in general now, a police officer parked perhaps in Mr. Tatsius's property as the buses exit and the kids exit. And I noticed myself going out the back entrance, especially during the day, is that perhaps we could do some trimming out there, the trees or the bushes. I personally drive a truck. I have to go way out. I can't see. You know, you go to exit if you're going to go left or right. It needs to be trimmed back before someone gets hurt.
Okay, let's get some landscaping done. Nice suggestion, Mr. Moran. Mr. Boot?
New business. Mr. Moran and I attended the advisory meeting last night. It was amazing how many more businesses that we've had here working, the advisors that came in. The superintendent and his staff put on a great presentation. You have some real great quality people in the community, and Ms. Bezanson, and it keeps growing, and it was good to see. And the lighting was one of those, why didn't we do that sooner? Like in that area, why, you know, got kids from electrical did the work. Mr. Mastrocola had me go out and take a look, and we've all known about it. We've all seen the dark, dingy, kids get off the bus and that, and now they're off in a bright light. It was just a very practical thing, and I'm glad the
I
superintendent,
think especially at night, you know,
Wonderful.
not so much
even in the morning.
hours, but at night it was really,
Yeah,
really
so,
lit up, you know what I mean?
great job seeing what I've been seeing for 5 years and making the recommendation. But again, the advisory committee meeting too, staff did a great job.
Thank you for letting me know about the advisory meeting. I'm sort of sad I missed it. I forgot all about it. Breaks my heart. I know that's one of the, I think one of the most important meetings of the year, and unfortunately I wasn't there, so
I
thank
drove,
you for reminding me.
I almost forgot, I drove by from coming back from an appointment
Saw a
and saw
sign.
it on the sign.
Got you. Okay, somebody question, Mr. O'Hare. I'm sorry, new business. Mr. O'Hare.
I wasn't going to talk under new business. I was just going to talk about one of the other items that is really circulating now is I don't hear anybody talking about the athletic program that here at the school. And fortunately, our team is just a thunderbolt at this particular year. They're doing extremely well and et cetera. And, you know, I just want to let you know and the rest of the committee how well they're doing.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of speaking to you as you were going to the Neshoba Tech game last week.
Yes,
before
you did.
were
You
going
gave me
in.
directions.
Yeah, and and I made sure to look at the score, and we've won, and I think we guaranteed a
Yep.
playoff spot. And now if we win this week, it was covered in the student report,
Yep.
that we will be in the MIAA tournament. So all great news happening with our sports as well.
Yep,
So
exactly.
Thank you for that.
That's all attributed to the refereeism and George.
It's all one big happy family. Okay, so new business. We have a nomination of a delegate and an alternate to the MASC Mass Joint Conference. So might be time to go ahead and make a make a recommendation for a delegate.
Is that for this year?
That would be for this upcoming meeting, I guess November 4 and 5. Is that correct, Ms. Gosselin?
I thought it was something the 8th.
It might have been the 8th, coming up,
Next
Wednesday,
week.
Thursday.
6th, 7th.
So would anybody like to be the delegate? Because I'm not even sure that I can make it, so.
Curtis would make a good delegate.
Curtis was delegate last year.
Experienced.
Mr. Gigi just mentioned he was going, and he'd love to do it.
Okay,
I done it 2 years.
He did it too.
I'd like to
I did it 2
nominate,
years. I'm gonna
If
shift
I
up
was
the
if I
time.
wasn't going to Florida, I would love
I'd like to nominate the dean of our school committee, Mr. O'Hare, who's been here for a long time, has
Very
done
good.
wonderful work. And I think that he would be a perfect delegate
Well,
for
thank you
us.
very much. I'm very familiar with that. I was a speaker at many of the seminars that they had there. I've been the chair going at the delegations. I'll be there.
Will you accept?
Beautiful.
Terrific. We have
Well,
a
I
second?
accept.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Booton. Terrific. Let's take a vote. Roll
Mr.
call.
Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Bahu,
Yes.
Mr. Lemay,
Yes.
Mr. Booton,
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias,
Yes.
Mr. Gigi,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare,
Yes.
Mr. Espinola. Now we need an alternate.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Alternate.
Okay, and I'm gonna nominate Mr. Lemay as our alternate, who went through it
I
last year.
will accept and I
You
will,
can give guidance if Mr. O'Hare needs any at all.
any and all assistance, yep.
Second it.
We're gonna second, Gigi, you're out.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
Okay, we're gonna take 2 votes to go into executive session. The first one.
Got that other vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. We get a report of the subcommittee from September 20th, 2018. That's the Finance Subcommittee.
Approving the report.
Okay, move to approve the report by Mr. Moran, seconded by Mr. Booton.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
And then we need 2 votes to go into executive session, the first one being a grievance settlement. So if we could have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moved by Mr. Tatsias, seconded by Mr. Lemay. Roll call.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
Okay, and our second item would be negotiations with non-union personnel. Motion by Mr. O'Hare, seconded by Mr. Gigi. Roll
Miss-
call.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
Okay, and then I think we should take a 5-minute recess.
Will there be any
great idea.
motions?
You
Will
wanna
there
just
be any?
move on?
Out of executive session.
You're just gonna move on.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Will there be any votes in open session after?
I would think so.
It doesn't seem like there needs to be. Yes?
There
Well, if
could-
we approve-
There could be on this.
Okay, great. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Bahu?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Booton?
Here.
Mr. Tatsias?
Here.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare? Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola?
Yeah.
Okay, in reference to our negotiations with non-union personnel, this committee has decided that we are going to give our superintendent a 2% increase for calendar year 2018-2019, commencing on August 12th. 2018 would be a 2% increase in his salary for a job well done, as well as 5 extra vacation days to be used no later than June 30th, 2019. It was a unanimous vote, and our superintendent was willing to accept that offer. Motion to adjourn. Anybody? Mr. Booton, seconded by Mr. Tatsias. Roll call.
Mr. Moran? Yes. Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Booton?
Yes.
Mr. Tatsias?
Yes.
Mr. Gigi?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Espinola? Okay.